All right, we are cutting the timer early. I know it's your favorite feature of this stream, that beautiful timer, but we're cutting it early because we're starting a little late. And I'm very excited today. I have a very special guest today. I'm sure some of you know of him. He has been in on NBA TV, the starters, no dunks, and he is a certified basketball savant. And his most recent ambition, he's playing 20 pickup games in 20 countries, and I think that number is getting even bigger. He's on 19 of 20. I think he's saving the best for last. He's going to Brazil next, as far as I know. He's filming the whole thing. He brings the thunder from down under. He's Leigh Ellis. Let's bring him in with a little Kawhi laugh.
Wow, that's a throwback there. I mean, that's pre-pan times there to have the Kawhi laugh. So pretty eating stuff. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, I'm very happy that you can be here. So we were working on technical difficulties before the show, and Leigh, I think you might be back.
No,
I hate to say it
perfectly.
I know. Well, chat, help us out. Are you hearing Leigh like on an echo where you can hear his voice twice? Let's see. Once the chat lets us know if it's still happening. Do you have like just like an old school headphone with a mic on it or anything like that? Or
I mean, this is the one that I've been using, but I can maybe just go to computer audio. Damn, he's saying an echo for sure there. Because we used to StreamYard at No Dunks, and like if I can hear you usually, that means it's fine on your end too, but apparently not. I guess we'll just give it or so here, and if it doesn't work, then I might have to go raw dog with the computer, or it might be the only thing we have here.
Yeah. Well, anyway, your audio is pretty crazy right now, so I'm gonna let you try to figure it out. Right, I'll remove you for a couple minutes and see if you can figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna remove Leigh. Leigh, you can see me. Hopefully, you can hear me, but technical difficulties galore today. This is the remix. But anyways, we can talk about NBA Top Shot for a minute while Leigh tries to figure himself out. Unless he's already ready. Leigh, if you can hear me and you think you're ready, give me a wave.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I'm hearing myself. Hopefully that doesn't continue.
Oh man, can you hear me now? Okay.
I can hear you. I can hear myself.
Oh man, what's going on?
Do you have headphones?
Well, yeah, I do, but I'll plug them in. I'll see if it makes a difference. I hope it does.
All right, we're gonna get this figured out. Okay.
How's that? How are we doing now?
I hope it's good. I hope I'm not hearing myself now. I don't think I am. Okay, great. We did it.
Okay.
Congratulations, we've done it. All right, let's start over again. Anyway, so yeah, I'm very, very happy, Leigh, that you answered the DM and that you're here. It's very gracious of you and very kind, because you're quite a busy person, and you've rubbed a lot of shoulders. You've smelled a lot of cologne, and I just think, yes, I really appreciate that. So there's so many ways we could go with this conversation. I mean, I'm honestly most curious about like the fact that you have videos of yourself shooting threes on the court with Steph Curry. This is stuff that I didn't even know. I had to do a little bit of research beforehand, and I'm like, wait a second, what? Like every video is crazier than the next. It's like you're living everyone's boyhood dream. What is that like? What is that like? I mean, I think you played with Isaiah Thomas on the court. You played with Steph Curry on the court. When I had Jay Skeets, he was telling me about how you learned about the NBA when you were younger, and it was all about Rolando. What was it again? Rolando
Blackman.
Rolando Blackman. Yeah. I'm scrolling down. You're talking to Rolando Blackman, and then you're shooting free throws next to him. Like, what is going on here? Why is it that you are able to like make this all happen?
It's it really, there's no secret sort of, recipe. It's just going out and trying things, and really that's all it comes down to is like, I just have ideas and I want to go out there and try to make things happen. And so you ask people and you try to knock on some doors and you try to poke people. And most of the time you get rejected or you get ignored or people just say flat out no. But for every 9 or 10 of those no's, rejections that you get, that one yes is always worth it. And so that's the sort of philosophy that I've sort of approached my life with, recently, is like, just keep on trying, keep on asking. If you've got an idea, see if you can bring it to fruition, but don't get down on yourself if things don't go perfectly to plan from day one. I use an analogy like you're building a house, right? Now, when you build a house, now houses are a bit different these days, but back in the day you used bricks, of course, bricks and mortar to build the house. Now, one brick individually doesn't stand out from the other bricks, but together, collectively, they can build a beautiful house, And also what happens is, when you build a house, like, there's no point the interior designer coming on day one. You've got to lay the foundation first. You've got to put the structure in place. You've got to build things. It takes time. There's a process to it. There's a reason why things happen at certain times. You can't put the roof on until you've got the structure ready. And so that sort of analogy is what I use for what I'm doing now, is where I'm trying to build this series into like a docu-series that it gets on Netflix or somewhere like that. But you can't skip steps. You've got to go through building the content, learning, and just trying new things. And so the more that you try, the more that I find people actually then say, hey, I've got an idea. Do you want to do this? Do you want to help me be a part of this? Do you want to come here and play this game? And so, it's one of those, like, bit of a snowball effect. Like, one sort of thing leads to another, and if you can make it happen, you try something else, and it just sort of goes from there. And you always just got to be rolling on your camera, because it's hard in the moment to know exactly what the story and what the content is going to be. But if you're rolling on it, you capture it all, then you get back home and then you look at it and you go, okay, what have I got here? And then what's the story? It's a little bit like someone I was talking to the other day said it's a little bit like Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David, where he has an overall sort of idea of what the story is, but he doesn't script it to the point where it's like, you say this and then I'll say this. It's like, let that natural interaction happen and we'll see how funny it is. And most of the time that natural reaction and the natural conversation is way funnier than anything you could script. And so that's kind of where I am right now. Like, I didn't script the stuff with Rolando Blackman and Steph Curry. I just had an idea, or I asked someone said, okay, you can do this. And then it's like, okay, I'll just go and see what I can make happen. And then you get back and then you look through and you're like, I start writing down a few things, and then I look at the video and I see if that works. And then I sort of, slap it all together, and you come up with some stories. And then if you have one that does well, it gives you that confidence to try something else, to try something new. And then, sort of one thing leads to the other. So it's really, it's sort of, it's almost like make it up as you go along, but there is also a bit of a substance behind it, because it's like, just film everything. When I'm on one of my content sort of missions, I try to film everything, not worry about the story in the moment. And then when I get back, I start looking through what I've got, and the stories kind of come to life.
Well, that means you're a pretty talented editor then, because I've found when I've done that kind of approach, sometimes I get overwhelmed. There's so much content, and it's like, oh my God, I wish I thought ahead of time a little bit more before I just filmed everything. So, but if that works for you, then kudos. That's great. How has the process gone? Because when you're doing this and you have you're staying positive, you have these ambitions, what have been the difficult times, and also what has organically happened that you've learned from during this process?
Well, most of the videos that I've put together that have done well have not been planned. And so it's again, like what you were saying just there as a moment ago, you kind of get a little bit overwhelmed. Well, I try to look at what the story is afterwards, and when I get back and sort through it, because it's all in the storytelling. You realize sometimes when you put a feature together, some people just want to hear the story and others want to see the pictures. If you can sort of find a way to blend them, that's when people can relate and resonate with them. And that's kind of what I've learned. Like, I went into this, just over a year ago thinking, okay, I want to have these big 15-minute features on every city. I want to tell the stories. I want to tell the tales. But that to me is overwhelming, because to try to put together a 15-minute feature is just a gigantic undertaking. So instead, I've decided, okay, I can build an audience by doing minute to minute and a half long features. And then if I'm able to attract an investor or someone like a production company, they can come and help blow out the series a little bit more and make it a little bit bigger. But I'm not going to get to that point unless I've got people really following along and investing in a consuming sense to what I'm doing. So there's frustrations and there's setbacks and there's disappointments, but again, it's how you react to those, I think, which is really important. And for me, the days where things go wrong and you just think, like you said, sometimes I shot something and I'm like, oh, just 2 more seconds and that would have been the perfect clip. Or, there was one game, I won't say which one it was. I hit this incredible basket, step back, crossover, knocked it in. No one recorded it. And I was just like, I had like 4 cameras going that day, 4 different people shooting. And I'm like, how can no one have captured that? So those are the sorts of things that you get upset about. But again, the thing is, I just realized what I'm doing right now. There's no, like, I'm not following any sort of template. It's like, it's my idea. I'm trying to make it happen the best way I can. And the only way to really take that approach is to embrace everything that comes along. Again, all those setbacks, all those little obstacles. It's like, okay, you can't expect things to go smoothly when you're not really following a path. You're hacking your way through the jungle. You've just got to keep on going. So it's very energizing though to wake up every morning and just be like, right, I'm going to find something today. And I go through my footage and I go through what I've got and I remember some stories and I'm like, okay, I think there's some pieces of the puzzle coming together here. And then you put something together and you're like, wow, I just kind of created that out of something else that I'd shot. I didn't know what it was at the time. It might have been shot a year or longer ago, but it comes to fruition. And the Steph Curry one, the recent one, he was in Atlanta, and that's where I live, and he had the 60-point game against the Hawks. And, incredible game, 10 3-pointers. They lost, in overtime. And I'm like, man, most of the time players, if they lose, are not in the mood to sort of chat too much after the game. But I had somewhat of a relationship with Steph, and after the game I was outside the Warriors locker room and I saw the PR man, and I know Ray, he's a fantastic guy, and Ray's also, he knows me, and I sort of said, is there any chance I can just maybe pitch a question or two to Steph? And he's like, we'll see, so I was just sort of there. Steph came out and I sort of looked at Ray, he looked at me, and it was like, okay, so can I just ask you some things about this 3-point shootout with Sabrina? And so I got those questions in, I put that video together, and then that led to the older video that I'd done with him where I'd shot in the past, where it's like, oh, okay, so that story is, I can weave that story in there. So, those are the things that come together really just from being in the right place at the right time and just, trying. Like if the Warriors PR man had said to me, Lee, not tonight, it's not happening, I would have said, fine, no worries. But I know that I would rather be in that position where he says no than sort of like, well, I'm not even going to try because who knows. And the very similar thing happened with Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic and Kevin Durant. I mean, the biggest names in our league, just kind of like, read the room a little bit, see how these guys are, and then if you get a chance, bang, 1 or 2 questions and get out, and that can be enough to create a feature. And so that's kind of what my approach has been, in these recent times where I haven't been traveling, is like, I can still talk to these guys about things that are related to what I'm doing as far as international basketball. And, it's a fun experience. And it was LeBron. LeBron was here. The Lakers were here a couple of weeks ago. And I thought, I'm going to ask LeBron something about the Olympics because he said he's going to play in Paris. And again, the Lakers lost. They'd lost the night before in Memphis or somewhere like that. And he was there and he was in a pissy mood, and I'm like, oh, he's not going to want to talk. And anyway, I had the camera there, I was ready. I said, hey, LeBron, can I? And he said, no, I'm done. And he walked off, and I was like, hey, that's fine, man. I got 4 out of 5 really big names. I can live with, taking that one loss there. But again, just being there, being ready to go. That's all. That's sort of the best approach in life, is just be ready to go in case it happens. And if it doesn't, don't take it personally and don't get down on yourself. Hey, you gave it a shot, and that's all you can do sometimes.
Absolutely, that's good advice. And for you to be at the room where the players are in the locker room, is that because you have like the NBA TV credentials still, or how do you get down there?
No, it's not. I mean, I'm now, completely independent, and I just emailed the Hawks. I know them from the NBA TV days, but I just said, hey, listen, I'm going to be doing some features. Is there any chance I can get a media pass? And they said, sure, and so I go down there and I do what I can. And but again, I'm not going down there as a fan. I'm going down, as a media person and in my role, and then I'm, producing that content. So I'm
Sure.
not just sort of turning up to the game and then leaving. I'm trying to make things happen. And again, that's all it comes down to, is fire off that email, and if you, and trust me, there's been, not with the Hawks, they're a fantastic organization. John Steinberg does an incredible job, but other organizations I've emailed and they just don't reply, and that's fine. I mean, it's like, okay, that's fine. I can live with it. You just have to, like I say, you just have to keep on firing away, and you're not going to get everything, but you're certainly not going to get everything if you don't ask for anything.
I almost feel like that could it doesn't really feel quite correlated to what you're producing in a way, but there's something there too, I think. Like that's almost some like self-improvement angle of just like the struggle and the drama of just trying to achieve and trying to create. There's almost a story within a story. Like you're trying to get this series bought or approved by, let's say, a Netflix. That in
Yeah.
itself is a story. That in itself is kind of interesting.
Well, it's ambitious, isn't it? I mean, like to just say my goal is to get on Netflix, but another analogy I make, I've got all these philosophies now, but if someone says to you like, "Hey, I'm going to climb Mount Everest," and then they say, you wouldn't think they would go, "My first mountain I'm going to climb is Mount Everest as well." You would think, okay, you have to go and climb smaller mountains. You have to learn what it takes to hike up big mountains, the equipment you need, the preparation, how you prepare your body, how you prepare your mind, all those sorts of things. And so that's where I am now. Like I don't realistically think, certainly not a year ago, that I could have gone to Netflix and say, "Hey, I've got a show." But where I am now, I think I'm starting to show a little bit more of like proof of concept, where it's like, look, these are the ideas, this is where I've been, this is who I've spoken to, this is what I'm trying to get to. Now, if someone can see the vision, then it becomes easier to sell. But if it's just an idea with no actual work behind it, then it's harder for anybody to actually understand what it is you're doing. So, but again, all that, like, the famous Kobe quote, like, you've got to fall in love with the process. And that really is where I am. Like, right now, I'm enjoying this challenge. I call it my Everest because it's like, this is the biggest challenge I've ever taken on in my life. And if it doesn't work out, if I don't get to Netflix, I'm not going to sit home and cry and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm a failure." I'll say, "Hey man, I gave it everything. I put everything into it I could. I tried everything. I emailed everybody. I've asked for all sorts of things, and I've tried to produce it. And afterwards, it's like some things just don't work out. But you can't be afraid, or you can't equate that to not worth the try. The word failure, people often add that as a negative connotation. It's like, well, you failed. It's like, well, again, failing through trying doesn't mean it's wrong, or it was the bad thing. I mean, the only real failure is not trying, and so I know that if I try, I might not get there, but I might. But if I don't try, then there's no chance. No one's going to knock on the door and say, "Hey, got any ideas? We've got $5 million we want to throw into into some ideas. If you got any, let us know." Instead, you want to get to that point where Netflix is like, "Oh, see what this guy's doing. I wonder if there's something we can get, make this into from here." And that to me is what's appealing. Is I want to get to the point where I don't have to pitch people. Instead, they try to pitch me.
Absolutely. That would be great. And when you think about like how you pitch the show, I was thinking about it too, and I was thinking to myself, man, with all the stuff that Netflix publishes, some of the rubbish, some of the people like falling in love in a bathroom without seeing who you're falling in love with, or whatever they're doing these days. I was thinking to myself, you know what Lee needs? He needs like that drama, that like fabricated drama.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was wondering, like, how do you fabricate drama on a docu-series about playing pickup basketball across the world? Because I know you shared one story, and I don't want you to like rehash every story like you're doing the talk show circuit, but I know that you had like one dramatic moment where you were with Luka Doncic's dad, and some like dude came up on you and spooked you. But like,
Yeah.
what other can you imagine what other drama you could create or manufacture to
Yeah.
really create those cliffhangers?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, you always need somebody with you just to be rolling on things, so you can capture those moments. And it might even be the mundane things like being stuck in an airport at 3 o'clock in the morning, like when I was supposed to go to Manila, and I got to the airport, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning. The flight was leaving to Seoul via Atlanta, or from Atlanta. And we get there and they say, "There's a typhoon, we're not going to Seoul." And I'm just like, "Oh damn." I mean, like, this is not like going from Atlanta to New York where there's a million other flights. I mean, it's like, I'm going to miss the whole trip to Manila and then miss the one to Tokyo as well. So I came home after I'd said goodbye to my wife and kids, and then all of a sudden you turn back up and you're like, this is, when you say goodbye, you've got to go. You can't come back, and they're like, well, where were you? I thought you were going, and you're not going anymore. Anyway, so the next day I just happened to make a call to Korean Air because I noticed they had a flight, and I said, can I get on that one? And they said, sure. And I thought, but isn't there a typhoon? And they said, oh, that's passed. And I'm like, oh, so what? They cancelled the flight when if we just waited a couple of hours, we might have missed it anyway. Anyway, so I flew in there to Seoul, and then I went on to Manila, but my bags didn't make it. And so all I had was like one spare pair of underwear and socks in my carry-on bag. The luggage turned up the day I left Manila, and then there was this whole thing getting all my luggage back from Manila. It spent longer in the Philippines than I did, my luggage, and it was all these things. I mean, these aren't necessarily drama things, but there's certainly been some moments where it's you're in a place where you feel a little bit uncomfortable, and again, if someone's shooting that, they can really capture it. But when you're by yourself or you're with some people you don't know, you sort of tend to not put your phone out. Instead, you're sort of like, I'm just going to see what happens here. And
Right.
I mean, in Kenya, for example, when I was in the Masai Mara there, the elephant that came out onto the road and just stopped dead and stared at the van, and I was just like, what's happening here? And then fortunately it left. And then later on we were driving, and it was just me and the driver, and he said we saw some lions, and they just had a big feed, and they were sort of sleeping it off, and he said you just don't want to spook them when they've had a feed, because they're that's when they're like resting. And we were driving along, and we just went down a ditch, and the car just went bang, and this loud thing, and this female lioness looked up, and I was just like, what are we doing here? So there's been a couple of moments there that have been a little bit scary. I mean, in Zambia as well, at the Victoria Falls there, I'm dangling over the Vic Falls, these two big men are holding onto my ankles, but you're sort of like, when my wife saw that, before I told her what happened, she was like, just want to be a little bit careful while you're out there. So there's been a few moments like that, but again, I think if I have the proper team around me, I think you're going to see a lot more of those. And you're right, people love drama. People love things going wrong, and there's been plenty of that along the way. It's just not been captured as it could be in told into stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can already imagine. I can already imagine the cuts. I can already imagine the lion's face, and you're in there looking at the lion, and we cut to the credits.
Yeah,
and then I gotta see what happens next.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great. What else? I mean, the crazy trips that you've been on right now, and crazy food that you've eaten. So I have a friend, Dave, who is very familiar with your body of work, let's say,
Right.
and he had a question, which is that you are known for following a very regimented diet. You're big on your beef, your bananas, and your broccoli. That's what he told me. So are you following this diet on the road? So there's that question. Are you able to follow your diet on the road? And then I have a follow-up question.
Well, so the beef is a few years ago, because I've largely cut red meat out of my diet, to be honest with you. I'm a part-time vegetarian. I'm a Monday to Friday vegetarian.
Wow.
So I try to eat only vegetables during Monday to Friday, and then on the weekends I'll have a piece of chicken or maybe some steak. But I've sort of cut it out, and I think part of the reason was I ate so much of it, and then I stopped eating it for a while. And then when I started eating it again, it was almost like, I just felt really heavy having so much steak in me. But when I travel, I think one of the most important things you can do is to dine on local food, whatever that is, And so when I am away, if I'm in a place and they say, hey, you've got to eat this, like in Kenya, it was like, you've got to try the crocodile. I'm like, yep, let's eat crocodile, So I will definitely try that, because the last thing I want to do is go to a country I've never been to before and just eat, hot dogs or pizza or something like that. I really want to try the local food. And so it's great, but you've also got to take the little tum-tums with you, because if it's something your body's not used to, it might upset the digestion system. But I do try to eat. Yeah, I eat a ton of bananas, and I drink plenty of water and that. And I think that sort of hydration helps. Playing the games. Really, because I'm fortunate that I don't really cramp up or anything like that, and I think it's largely due to the hydration and potassium that I take. And then yeah, I mean, when I was in Manila, the thing I said to the guys out there, I said, "Do you take me to the most Filipino style restaurant with any only local food? I don't even care what's in it. Just let me have traditional dishes." And they took me out, and it was great. And because to me as well, when you go to a restaurant, especially when you're in a different country and you're meeting people, it's not a meal. It's almost ceremonial. It's almost like, okay, this is what we eat, and then we eat this, and then we drink this, and we have this, and you feel so much more embedded in that culture of that place, because it's like you're getting to experience what I believe, the basis of travel is like local experiences. Like, of course, staying at the Four Seasons Hotel is always nice because it's top end and there's great food and there's a big bedroom and all that. But I would much prefer, like in Iceland, the person who I was staying with there, he said, my mum and dad are out. You can stay at their house if you want in Reykjavik. And I was like, yeah, that's way better than going to a hotel, because you're going into somebody's home. And so that to me is a really much more of a welcoming feeling, where you feel more like a guest rather than a tourist. And so that to me extends to food and drinks and visiting places. In Mexico City, I was eating grasshoppers with my friend Rodrigo. He said, "Hey, it's a snack out here," and I'm like, "Give me some grasshoppers, I'll eat them." You know.
Yeah.
Now, people often, when I tell that story, they sort of think you're picking it off the ground and you're just throwing it into your mouth. But these have been cooked and sauteed, and they've got a bit of spice and things like that too. It's like any crunchy potato chips. And the other thing, when you know how unhealthy a lot of snacks are anyway, with salts and fats and things like that, eating a grasshopper is not that bad, to be honest. So, I wherever I go, the instruction I always have to the sort of connection I have in the city is like, take me where the locals eat, and that's what I want to experience. And I just feel it's so much more of an enriching experience, where you come away from it going, I've never had that meal before, I've never eaten that way before, but now I have another experience to take away from it.
I totally agree with you. My favorite part of traveling is probably eating.
Yeah,
Um, Definitely. I mean, we actually did a day trip the other. So I live in Portugal. We did a day trip where we were in the south, and we did a day trip to Sevilla, and they have those churros with the chocolate. They melt the
yeah.
chocolate to eat the churros. Oh man, so good. My wife's like, "Oh, let's go to the cathedral." I'm like, "All right, I guess but that's really not what I'm here for. I'm here for the food. Let me eat."
Is your wife
Um,
Portuguese?
she's actually Brazilian, so she has the
Oh,
language.
oh,
Um, and she has some cousins out here, and I speak some Portuguese. So,
oh,
and I
nice.
know that you were in Lisbon, and I actually didn't know you were here when you were here,
Yeah,
but when I was doing my recon, I saw that you were here. Um,
yeah. Oh man, loved Lisbon. That was the first time I've been there, and it was beautiful, so colourful. Just
mhm.
incredible.
Are there any countries that you well, it's sort of a stupid question, but like I said, like, are there any this is actually related to a show I used to watch called Flight of the Concords, which is,
Oh
are there
yeah.
any countries that you don't want to visit, and why is New Zealand at the top of that list?
No, New Zealand. New Zealand's actually very high on the list of places I want to go to. I mean, the only places I wouldn't go, for obvious reasons, are Ukraine, Russia, Israel, places like that, where the tone is just obviously not right. Now, I've
Yeah.
been to Russia, and I have to say, Moscow and St. Petersburg, two of the most amazing cities I've ever been to. The people were incredible. The food was mind-blowingly good. The architecture, the city, everything about it. So you can separate the country and the people from the government, and realize that these any country's got an amazing culture to it and amazing stories to tell. So it's not that I would never go there. I would obviously go back, but I think for what I'm doing, you don't want to be going, oh, here I am in, Moscow playing, or Tel Aviv or somewhere like that. It's just right now there are places you need to avoid. But at some point, as the, situations improve, hopefully I can go and play there, because I find again that my time in Red Square there in Moscow, I was just blown away at how amazing it was. It really felt like you were going back in time in some ways. But then the architecture of the subways in Moscow is amazing, just
Mm.
incredible stuff. So, you know, I think that's what's really important about and you know as well, obviously you're married to a Brazilian girl, you're living in Portugal, so you know what it's like that people have prejudices and they have sort of assumptions about countries and cities. But once you get there and experience it for yourself, you realize most people are decent people. Most people
Yeah,
are good people and they're welcoming and they're like, hey man, we just want to have a good life as well. We want to work and have a family and have friends and eat good food and stuff like that. There's always a couple of, people who aren't like that. And that's everywhere. Australia, Canada, America, England, everywhere I've lived, I've encountered the bad people as well. But for the most part, the experiences I've had have been, welcoming and with fun people. And that's what keeps you going. If you sort of take that, that generalization, which some countries have, which in fact every country has a generalization. And again, I'm sure as an American abroad, you feel that as well at times. That's just not true. There are parts of it that have related to people who have traveled. But again, that's everyone. Everyone's faced and met that person that they're like, that person's a complete joke and it really doesn't represent my country well. But I've also had some amazing times. I when I was living in London, I used to know some pilots who flew for United Airlines. I worked at a hotel where they stayed. I went out and had a great time with those guys, and these guys were all much older at that stage of life. But the point being, most people again can get along and have a beer and have a good time. No one's going to like, well, I refuse to drink with that person because they're from this country. There might be that one or two people from that country that you don't want to drink with, but for the most part, it's like, hey man, let's just have a drink and have some fun and get to know each other. And that sort of understanding of different cultures, I think, is what brings us closer together anyway.
absolutely. I agree. That kind of reminds me too. When I was younger, I would do something called couch surfing. I don't know if you ever heard
Oh
of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, you definitely get to know a place very well when you're sleeping on someone's couch. Um,
Yeah, I
but
used to stay in hostels all the time, and you would stay in a room with like 12 strangers from you wouldn't have any idea where they're from, and you'd put your passport and your wallet under your pillow, and then you go out for a day with a credit card and a couple of bucks in your wallet, and you come back and your passport's still there, and it's like amazing, I
yeah,
just when I think about that now as a father, I'm like, I just can't imagine going to a place. Here, boys, give me your passport. Bang, under the pillow. Let's go.
yeah. No, I know things definitely change.
Yeah,
But anyways, I got a couple of videos to play, a couple of
sure.
palette cleansers. First of all, we got some on Twitch, so we got to play the Twitch guy drop. Here we go. Twitch guy. All right, there's the Twitch guy drop. And we also have a video for you, Lee, because when I had Skeets on here, he told me that I had to play this video for you. So here we go.
Okay.
Play it.
All right, we're back.
Holy crap. Who was that guy jumping? What was that clip?
Oh, that was me. I was in Brazil.
Wow, you looked like Leigh Ellis, the guy I do the show with there. You play
Really?
that again?
All right, let's play it again.
Wow.
Hey, that's true. I was looking at that and I'm thinking, like, is that me? Did I do that somewhere? I mean, the hairstyle, the same sort of size and shape, and I'm like, geez, wow. Whereabouts in Brazil was that?
So that was at the San Francisco River,
Right.
and that's the second largest, I think, the second largest body of water in Brazil. Very
Right.
beautiful place, very hot place. I
Yeah.
actually was getting COVID around that time without knowing it, so I was I was blissfully unaware in that photo.
Right.
But yeah, those are good times.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's get back to the basketball. I have some more questions here.
Yeah.
One is, what are some unwritten rules of playing pickup basketball? And do you have any pet peeves when playing pickup basketball? I could tell you mine, which is two things. One, guarding the very sweaty guy, and he loves posting up. And that's just the worst. And
Yeah.
also, like when it's kind of casual and you somehow just attracted the guy who loves playing super hard defense. What are your pet peeves about playing pickup basketball?
Well, definitely, I will say the sweaty guy. I hate when your forearm touches the guy and it's just like you're just covered. That part of it for me is that's probably the worst. I mean, the other pet peeve, I think, and this is what happens, and actually I'd be interested to hear if you play in Europe to know what your take from this is, because I find in Europe there's so much more 3-on-3 basketball, which I think is actually a better format for pickup basketball. I think it's better because it keeps people involved. And my pet peeve is when I play 5-on-5 here in America, so many times it's just 1-on-1 with actually 4 guys standing around, and one guy will score and then the other guy wants to go and get him back. And then, so often when I've played here, I've come, after being in Europe, I come and it's like one pass max and then someone's shooting away. And it's just like, can we just get a little bit of ball movement? Can we get the ball just, 2 or 3 passes at least here? But that doesn't happen. So that's one thing that I didn't know until I started traveling like this, where I'm like, 3-on-3 should be the way it is here as well for pickup basketball, just so that more people can be involved in the game. And even if you have 10 players, right, or 12 or whatever, if you play 3-on-3 half court, more people can play and more people can be involved in the game. Whereas sometimes when you play 5-on-5 full court, and let's say it's up to 7, that last basket often takes 10 minutes because it's like someone calls a foul, someone says they traveled, someone does the, whatever. And it's like, guys, just end the game, will you? So, it can drag on and on and on. So 3-on-3, a lot quicker. You're involved on defense, you're involved on offense. I just feel it's a more fun way to play street basketball than trying to play full court 5s.
I agree. I mean, I don't play that often, but when I have played out here, it's been 5-on-5 actually. And
oh, really?
My friend who plays out, he plays these games as well in full court 5-on-5. But I would totally echo what you're saying, which is often you're just kind of running around, you're just getting exercise, running exercise. You're not, you're playing like Tony Snell. I think that was Tony Snell.
That's what Worldwide Wob did. I think it was him who tweeted it first. He had an all cardio game or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, 28 minutes and not a single statistical achievement.
Yeah, so sometimes I feel that way. But anyways, we got a little sticker here, so thank you, Jump Shoot. What we do here, we say ice cream so good, yes, so yummy, thank you, Jump Shoot. Appreciate that. All right, well, let's keep it going here. We asked you about your pet peeves. And what about drama on the court? Sometimes you play on the court and people start getting each other's faces, and you almost have fisticuffs. So has that happened during your travels?
No, it hasn't actually, and that's I think a part of the way that I mean, I don't want to take full credit for this, but I always say, listen, we're here to play and have fun. Okay, so let's just go out there and play. And so I always try as best I can to invite girls to come along and play, and even kids, because I want then everybody to understand it's not about winning or losing. We're just playing to have fun, to bond, to get to know each other. This is part of the experience. And then I always have prizes to give away as well, like jerseys or T-shirts or pair of shoes or a pair of airline tickets, as was the case in Iceland.
Oh, wow.
And that, so that to me is ideally what you're trying to build, is that like understanding that there's no one's keeping score. I mean, you might keep score in the sense for each game and then someone else comes on. But in Belgrade, in Serbia, I played for about 2 hours on the court with these guys, and we were just going like up and back and up and back. And no one, after a while, people just stopped caring about scoring, because it's like, let's just play and have fun and compete. And, it's still competitive, but it's not like, man, I got to take it to this guy. I got to beat this guy. You can have so much fun by just playing when you're not really worried about who's winning or losing. And if you want to have a little break, you have a break. And then when you're ready to come back on, you come back on. So I fortunately haven't had anyone, I haven't had to separate anyone or anything like that. It hasn't gotten to that point. It probably will at some point, because it's just the way it goes. But that to me is what I'm also trying to promote, that, there's no scoreboard. At the end of the day, everybody who comes out to play, even if you don't play, you can still get a chance to win one of the jerseys or one of the T-shirts that I've got. And so sometimes I feel that energy that I put out there, people go, oh yeah, okay, we're not here to try to make it into the NBA. We're just here to have some fun.
Sure. So you never see, let's see, is that sharing? You never see any of this?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but what is going on here?
Yeah, well, Draymond, I mean, I respect Draymond for what he's done as a player, but at the same time, it's like he's not learning his lessons. He's been suspended twice this season. He was lucky yeah, I mean, he got into it last night with Isaiah Stewart, I believe it was. No, that must have been a couple of nights ago, actually. But it's like he's sort of getting to the point where he's not as effective as he was in those prime Warriors championship days. So now he's almost like that angry old man who's just trying to, you know, trying to stay relevant. But doing that, the 4 rings like that, when it's like you're probably going to miss the playoffs this year. Like it's fine. We know you won 4 championships. It's great. He's a Hall of Famer. He's probably going to get his jersey retired there from the Warriors. He just doesn't need to do that. But
what do you make? What do you make of that hand movement? What was that? Was that him shanking you? Was that like a sexual innuendo? What was that?
I think he's showing the 4, isn't he? I think for
but
the
after that, look after after the 4, he does this. Look, he does this. Boom. What was that?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Again, he's almost doing it where he doesn't want them to notice as well. It's just weird, but Draymond's that guy. Like I say, he's a great player, but it's still so easy to get under his skin. And with all he's gone through, with all the success he's had, he should be just laughing at people when they try to upset him. Just like you're not gonna get me sucked in to get another fine or a suspension or to do anything, because it feels that even with that last suspension, which I think was 12 games. He's come back and it's like, yeah, listen, just poke him and he'll react. I mean, like if it's a young player, you understand. It's like, yeah, young players are still going to learn. But when you've achieved all he's achieved, at this point, he should be just going, listen, man, I got more important things to worry about, just trying to get us into the play-in tournament.
Now he's like, somehow he's made himself must-see TV for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Like I think last night, I don't have that clip ready, but he goes up for a rebound, he gets like knocked in the head, he literally lies on the ground for like 2 possessions. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But everyone gives him a pass though. He's literally the Donald Trump of the NBA. He can do anything, and he'll still end up there next to your friends in Atlanta. By the way, I didn't ask you anything about that, but he'll be sitting right in between Ernie and Chuck in the middle of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. He can do anything.
Well, I mean, you're right. You're right about that. I'm sure when the Warriors, because they may miss the play-in tournament altogether, and Draymond will be on the TV there. So, and the thing is, he's actually not a bad analyst. Like, I like the way that he does analyze games. He says things and he shows you things and he draws up those diagrams on the screen, which is good. It's just, that's what I mean. To me, his maturity has grown in some parts of his life and his world. But then there's other things I'm like, how are you still getting sucked into that sort of stuff, Because I know myself as now, as a little bit older in life, you think, oh man, the things that used to bug me when I was 20, now you're just like, there's no way those things are going to bring out the same reaction they might have brought out of you when you're, when you're that age, because you don't have that life experience. But he has that life experience. He has that basketball credibility now where, like I say, he's a Hall of Famer. His jersey's probably retired. He might even get a statue, who knows, from the Warriors there. But it's also like, God, he's still so easy though to provoke and to get a response out of.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, moving right along. I know that you're a big EuroLeague fan. So for what should the people know in the chat? So for example, I started looking today. I started doing a little research. I saw that there's a couple of juggernauts in the EuroLeague. It's like the Real Madrid. Shane Larkin is like an absolute beast. He was like on the Celtics some years ago. Mike Jones, the top scorer. What else should people know about the EuroLeague who might want to know more about it, since you are such a fan?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, because, if you were to compare the standard between the EuroLeague and the NBA, I mean, the NBA is by far the most talented league in the world. It's not even close to that. And those players you mentioned, Shane Larkin, I mean, those guys would prefer to be in the NBA if they still could, but they were sort of fringe players, whereas they become star players in EuroLeague. So the standard is not the same, but it's more about the experience as a fan and as a spectator, which really stood out to me. I've been to games in Lithuania, Istanbul and Belgrade. I'm hoping to go to Athens here too soon to go to experience a derby there. And that's what it's about. Like, I've been to so many NBA games throughout my life living here in Atlanta and in Toronto and through other cities. And sometimes I've had some incredible games. I've been to incredible games, but I've been to more where you're kind of like, there's just not much energy. There's not much vibe in the crowd.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like that. But whereas in Belgrade, now no, I did go to a Red Star versus Partizan game, so the biggest possible derby in Europe, and it was the most intense environment I have ever felt in a basketball sense, because every basket, every possession, the crowd was hanging on by a thread, as if like, oh my God, this is the key possession for the game here. And over an hour before the game, the fans were singing and chanting and taunting each other and trying to, like get people involved. And that was what was amazing about it. But also, in the NBA, one of the biggest criticisms I've had is there's far too many meaningless games. I mean, there's far too many games, which leads to the meaningless games. Whereas in Europe, in the Euro League, every game matters and every game is really, really important. So when every game matters and every possession matters within that game, the players are trying and they're diving on the ball and they're fighting and scrapping over everything. Of course, you get a couple of blowouts. That happens, but I think you have fewer of those because there's so much more. The stakes for each game are so much higher. Whereas in the NBA, there are so many games throughout the season that are just like, our team could lose 10 games in a row, and they could still be in now with the play-in tournament. They could still make it into the playoffs and things like that. And so that's where the difference is, that the NBA is like, it's almost like gluttony, where there's way too many games. And when you have too many games, players, and we've seen this in the last few years and probably back over a decade now, players just look at a couple of games and they're like, not tonight, I'm not playing. And so, like with anything, I mean, I saw Coldplay, one of the greatest shows I've ever seen here not long ago in Atlanta. Now, if Chris Martin just decides one night, nah, I'm not into it tonight. Well, no one in the audience is going to go, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm going to have a great time anyway. I mean, the entertainer, the reason you pay the money, has to give you everything back. And if they don't, then how can the fans walk away with an incredible experience? And in Europe, I feel that, now again, I've probably been lucky because every game I've been to has been incredible, but I feel that my time here in Atlanta, there's been so many games that I've been to over the years here where I'm just like, man, the crowd turns up halfway through the second quarter. They leave at halftime and go and have a drink, get something to eat. They come back in the third quarter and then they leave, halfway through the fourth. So it's not that same like, oh my God, we can't afford to lose tonight. It's more like, oh, let's go to the game for a bit and then just leave when we're ready. And that is where I think Europe is different, that people turn up to those games and it means something, and the players give everything, and the coaches are insane as well. So, there's just a different energy, which I think does compensate for the fact that, of course, the players, while they're an incredibly high standard, it's the second best league in the world, it's never going to be a stronger league in terms of skill level than the NBA. But that's fine. It's not trying to. It's just what it is, though, is a different fan experience.
How many games are in the regular season in the EuroLeague?
So I believe it's 38, right? So they have their EuroLeague, but then they also have their domestic league as well. So it's like the Champions League of soccer. The EuroLeague is like the Champions League of soccer. So you have your inter-country league, but then you also have the Champions League, basically, which goes out and competes. And then they have the playoffs. The top 8 teams play off in a best of 5 format, and then the winners of those playoffs go to like this year it's going to be in Berlin, the Final Four, and they have a Final Four, and it's awesome. I mean, it was in Lithuania last year, and it was just wild.
I'd love to be able to experience that once too. I was really hoping they'd have that here in Portugal. I'm like, yes, I'm going to be in Europe. I'm going to be some crazy European basketball games. And then I asked my friends, they're like, nobody cares. Like, nobody goes to those games. Like, oh man, it's like so close yet so far.
But I mean, you're so close to Madrid and Barcelona and places like that. I mean, you can get over there for one of those games, and maybe a derby between one of those, between the El Clasico. That'd be a great experience, because last year, Real Madrid, they were down 2-0 at home in their playoff series to Partizan Belgrade. Then there was a suspension, but even still, they came back and won in 5. So they had to win 2 at home and 2 on the road, and then came back to Madrid to win Game 5. And even in Game 5, they were down by 15 at half time, and they came back to 1. Then in the Final Four, they had to beat Barcelona in the semi-final. They were down in that game. They came back and won. And then they had to beat Olympiacos in the final. They were also down in that game. Sergio Llull captain, the 37-year-old, hit one basket in the final, and it was the one that won them the championship. So, I mean, I was fortunate to be there, and I said, man, like, how did Madrid even make it to the Final Four? And then how did they make it to the final? And then how did they win the game? And they're just sort of like, yeah, I don't know. We just kept going.
That's great. That's awesome. So yeah, we're right at the All-Star weekend now. I know in the past you've shared your opinion about the All-Star weekend. It's not unlike the sentiment you feel over the regular season, which these players just don't quite care enough. That's been the problem for a long time in the All-Star weekend. At least the Sabrina versus Steph Curry thing is somewhat interesting, and I feel like that'll be the event to watch this weekend.
Yeah,
I don't know,
I'm
do you
excited.
have any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm excited for that. I think that's a great idea. And I think if this goes well, this could be something they incorporate going forward, where it's like the best WNBA shooter goes against the best, or a NBA 3-point shooter. I think, why not? But yeah, my criticism has been of the All-Star game and the dunk contest, especially. I still like the 3-point shootout because it hasn't really changed. I still like the competitive nature. I love seeing the guys get into a rhythm and shoot, and setting new records. And when a guy hits like 10 in a row, it's like, yeah, there's a vibe there to that. So I'm fine with the 3-point. No one needs the skills competition, but I understand why they keep doing it. Now the dunk contest, it just frustrates me that it's, these guys who are supremely competitive are afraid of being, made fun of in the dunk contest. That's what it comes down to for me. It's like Mac McClung, no disrespect. His dunks were great last year. He's in it again this year. But there's a difference if that's Ja Morant or a Zion Williamson, or Anthony Edwards, someone who's like, hey, man, we want to see the best players in the league go in the dunk contest and not avoid it. LeBron's going to end his career never being in the 3-point shootout, never being in the dunk contest, like that shouldn't be the way. He should have gone in at least one of those. He sort of said he was going to, 15 years ago, and he never did. So the dunk contest is like, okay, if you're not going to get the big names, I'm not sure you need to keep it up, because again, Mac McClung winning it, it's like great dunks, but it's Mac McClung,
Why do you think Jaylen Brown entered this year?
Yes, a little surprised, but I'm glad he did, because I think he actually is a good dunker, and I want to see what he's got. And I would love for him. He's an all-star. He's an all-NBA guy. I think he's actually technically got the biggest contract.
Yeah, he does.
In the league, like
Yeah.
until this off season anyway. But
Yep.
good on him, and maybe he can go in there and say, like, yeah, man, go and have some fun. Just have some dunks. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, maybe you're going to be memed if you do something silly, whatever. But like show the fans that the players care, because for all the gimmicks the NBA has tried, which I think were actually fine to try, the mixing up the teams and having the selections at the last minute. I think that's all good and well. But ultimately it doesn't mean anything if the players don't try. That's the only way the game is going to improve, is when the players decide to compete, and they don't do that. Now, no one's expecting them to go out and, a full court press the entire game, but just don't have this like walking down where it's like do and then shooting, because it's just boring. It's just like watching a practice. So Adam Silver, you can say, all right, everyone gets $5 million or whatever. It makes no difference. Make it $1 billion. The players it's only going to get competitive when the players try. And I look at guys like Kevin Durant, who I think he is one of those guys who's unapologetically competitive no matter what. And I look at someone like him and be like, man, let Kevin Durant sort of go out there and just cook some blokes, because I think that is going to be like, hey, man, I thought this was an all-star game, and he's out here, doing this. Like, all right, well, I'm going to go back at him, and then get a little bit of that competitive juice going, because I think that's what it's about. But when you sort of see like 8 guys stand off to the side and 2 guys just go one-on-one, I'm not sure that's the best thing. Is you want that competitiveness where it's like, hey, there's something on the line here, because it's like we're playing for it. And one of the features I did with Rolando Blackman back the very first All-Star game I saw in '87, I mean, the play that he took inside where he got fouled and hit the 2 free throws, 4 guys from the East jump on him. Isaiah Thomas basically flagrant fouls him in an All-Star game. And so, but talking to those guys about it when I did, you could feel in their voice that they were like, we're not out there just to, like go through the motions. We're out there to compete and play, and you get a much better result when that happens.
Yeah, I know. I just don't know. Like, you would think that these players who watch basketball, they should be able to look at the game when it's done and say, "Wow, that was the most boring, shittiest game I've ever seen." Like everyone just doing alley oops on each other.
Yeah.
Everyone just watching the players play, and
Well,
then
for the
and then they added that other aspect to the end of the game where like you had to score a certain point
yeah,
total, and then they were starting to play some defense, like just the very end of the game. But I don't
yeah.
know, man. It almost feels very difficult to figure out how to make these guys care.
Well, and that's the thing is like you can't make them care. They have to take that themselves because again, if you're telling me guys who have earned $400-500 million need another incentive, a little bit like the in-season tournament, they said, "Oh man, there's $500,000 up for grabs," and I'm like, so many of those guys. LeBron gets paid more than that from Nike each week. I mean, does he
I know.
does he really like? Well, I'm competing now because there's 500 grand up for thing. You know, now not everyone's got the money that he has, but again, most players in the NBA have got enough where it's like I'm like, what you need another $500,000. I mean, that's after tax. You're going to get about 300,000 anyway. So, but that's that feeling that it's like you got to pay me to play when you're already on a massive contract by normal person standards anyway, is puzzling to me.
Yeah, I think maybe the end of the bench players on everyone's team gets the money, and they're playing for their end of the bench players. I felt like that was part of what made the in season tournament thing interesting. It's like these bench warmers making money that literally would like double their yearly
Yeah.
salary.
And again, I like the idea from Adam Silver. I just would have executed it differently, and like I say, it's like this is a chance to do something. If you're going to go and play in Vegas, it's like fine, but why not take this to Europe? Why not do rather than the one Cleveland versus Brooklyn game in Paris? Why not make the in-season Final Four go to Paris and have it over there? So that again, there's a different feeling. There's something on the line, because as I'm sure you know, living there in Europe, one game comes over, it's in Paris, it's Brooklyn and Cleveland. You're kind of like, I mean,
Yeah, who
sure,
cares?
yeah, like put something there where the European fans are like, oh man, this is not just a game. There's something on the line here, and the players are going to put in.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to have that in Dubai or something like that next year with the in-season tournament, but we'll see. So tell me a little bit then about tell me a little bit about your being on the show with Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson just now, and also just I was also curious the fact that you've had all these interactions with all these NBA like legends. Do you still get like the butterflies in your stomach, or is it now like kind of common for you? You're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like it's always exciting because this is when I think about 12-year-old me growing up in Australia. Like I would have killed for that sort of access. I mean, if I could have interviewed Isaiah Thomas as a 12-year-old when the Pistons won the championship, I mean, that would have been, amazing. But I also think that being a fan for that long and loving the game for so long from afar, it almost prepared me for these moments, where I'm not afraid to sit next to Charles Barkley because it's like, Charles, I can tell you everything about your career if you want, right? If you want to go through it season by season, I can tell you about that. So I think it's almost like studying for an exam. If you've done the work and you've done the preparation, you don't feel nervous because it's like, well, I know I can talk to Charles about anything about his career because I witnessed so much of it unfold, even again from afar. But I read Hoop magazine and I read Basketball Digest and I saw him interviewed and I followed it so closely. So you may have seen on that interview, I asked him about the '87 All Star game, his first one, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll never forget." And then I said, "I remember what happened." He goes, "No." I'm like, "Well, okay, I can tell you what happened." Um, so it's the same. I mean, I'm not an analyst anymore where I'm sitting down watching games and then trying to, break them down like that. But as far as a basketball fan, I'm still just as much a fan as I ever have been. And so the way that I consume the game and the way that I, see the players, it's a different approach I take now where I'm trying to sort of get some story time out of them and get some different angles and things because those questions after a game for the most part, oh man, you guys lost tonight, what happened? Well, we didn't rebound, too many turnovers, we missed some shots we normally make. There's not much meat on that bone, so I'm trying to find different things to talk about so that you can get different reactions and different emotions, and that's what I'm finding. So I mean, I think the funniest thing is when I look at Luka Doncic, for example, when I spoke to him, he's 20, I guess he's 24, 23, 24, something like that. And I'm like, man, I'm so much older than him, but it still feels like he's older than me because he's, it feels like I'm still that kid, and I'm, looking up to these NBA players, because I don't feel that I've changed from when I was when I was 12, 13 years old, just like loving the game and loving watching these guys play. And so it's a funny feeling to look at them and be like, I could easily be this guy's dad, but I'm still kind of like, oh man, he's he's doing what I wanted to do. He's made it in the NBA and he's living that part of his life that I always dreamed of. But now I'm doing it in my own way, and I'm finding it very, very fulfilling.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Lee, something that we talk about every week here is we talk about NBA Top Shot. I know that you have some awareness of NBA Top
Yes.
Shot. I think you ripped some packs with the guys over there.
Yes.
What if you could create a Top Shot moment from either one of your favorite moments as a viewer, a spectator, or as a player? Well, what are some moments that you would want to commemorate forever in a digital collectible?
Wow, that's a great question. Now, you can go back any era at any time. Is that right?
Sure, it's just some
Yeah.
moments that mean a lot to you.
Yeah. Well, I guess, okay, one that really stands out, one of the first playoff series I watched was the 1989 playoffs between the Golden State Warriors and the Utah Jazz. The Warriors were number 7, the Jazz were number 2. And the Jazz had a really good playoff run the year before. They took the Lakers, who went on to win the championship, to 7 games, and it was like, well, now they were the number 2 seed. It's like the Jazz were expected to go far. But the Warriors ended up sweeping them, winning the first 2 in Utah, and then they swept them in game 3. And there's a moment where the Warriors are leading, and then the Jazz go on this big run late, and Manute Bol's playing. And Manute Bol was shooting 3-pointers, back then. And I still remember the commentary was it was Steve Jones and Skip Carey, I think his name was. And anyway, so the Warriors need a basket badly, and Manute's missed like 5 3-pointers, and he picks one up, and he's he's not like got a beautiful Larry Bird style shot. He sort of like heaves it at the rim, and it swishes, and it just kind of breaks the ice, and the Warriors got that basket they need, and they go on to win the game. And I can hear, no, it's Pete Van Wieren was the commentator, and I can hear his voice like, Manute Bol, the only man in the league who shoots those threes downhill. And it was just such a cool, it was such a cool moment, because it was the year before the Run TMC started. So it was Chris Mullin, Mitch Richmond, Winston Garland, Larry Smith, Rod Higgins, and then Manute coming off the bench and hitting the 3. And so, moments like that, again, they stay with me. Oh man, how did you find this?
I just was
That's
Googling
amazing.
while you were talking.
Oh my God, that's it. That's the 3, yeah. And
It's the most replayed moment.
wow, yeah, and that's it. And you can see the crowd erupting there because it is late. And then Pete Van Wieren is like, I can't believe you found that so quickly, man. That's amazing.
No one, not a cell phone
yeah.
in sight in that
And
crowd.
there you go. So you can see it was like a 6-point. No, it must have been what was that? 6-point game, and he took it out to 3. And now you see a big sweaty, like you'll see. There he is. There, the big sweaty close up. And Pete Van Wieren, yeah, the only man who shoots those threes downhill.
I'll probably say it right now.
The only man that shoots those 3-point shots downhill.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh man, that's amazing. That is truly amazing. And yeah, so things like that just, again, when you grow up in Australia, and this is before the internet and cable TV, where we had no access to get league pass or things like that. I mean, I probably watched that game probably 6 weeks or even longer after it happened, just because of that's how long it took to get the things back then. But I watched that game over and over and over again because Chris Mullin, he was a fairly high draft pick. I can't remember exactly out of St. John's, but he had some alcohol problems in his first couple of years, and I think the Warriors almost traded him. But then I think that was the first year he was really sober and he was incredible. And some of the shots he makes in that game, he's not athletic, he's not fast, but he's just got that way of like, flipping the ball up and hitting these crazy jump shots. And they upset, as I say, the huge favourite, Karl Malone and John Stockton and the Jazz there. And, so those sorts of moments are just sort of tattooed on my memory because I remember watching that game over and over and over again. And, to relive it right now spontaneously is amazing. I think that would be a great Top Shot moment.
All right, good. And actually, Steve, who's another fellow Australian who works over there at Dapper Labs, he asked a question on the Twitter thread. One of the questions, which was, "Who's your favorite Australian player right now?"
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Paddy or Joe, really. I think, I mean, what those two guys have meant to Australian basketball, men's basketball, has been incredible. Paddy scoring the 42 points in Tokyo to win the bronze medal. Incredible, really, really good stuff. And Joe Ingles, I mean, speaking of sort of Chris Mullin not being super athletic and not being super fast, Joe Ingles, doesn't look like that either, but he goes out there and he was really, really good for the Utah Jazz during those playoff runs. And, it's good to see because those guys have meant so much to Australian basketball over the years. And whenever they put on that green and gold jersey, Andrew Bogut, Della Vedova, Aaron Baines, all these guys, whenever they've put on the green and gold, have raised their level of play. And I think that's something that, as a kid growing up there, that's what we always prided ourselves on, is like, you might be opponents in the league, but once you put on that Australian jersey, everyone just comes together and plays their best for their country. And it's amazing. So I was so glad that those two guys got to celebrate a bronze medal, because Australia had finished fourth, I think, 4 other Olympics, and had not been able to break through and win that bronze medal. And finally we did. And, gold's obviously the goal, but again, you got to accept where you are as well. That, like, I don't think gold was realistically in Australia's reach, but a bronze was, because you win the bronze. You don't lose gold to get silver. You win the bronze medal. And that to me was a really special moment to see Australia in Tokyo there in 2021.
That's awesome. Were you there, or you were watching?
Because it was the COVID Olympics. Remember,
course.
So as far as I can remember, it was either very limited fan support or almost none. I think they actually said no to fans, if I remember correctly.
And I was really happy, by the way, to learn, I Googled it before the show, that Aaron Baines is actually playing basketball. I wasn't sure. I remember he had that freak accident with like a hook on the wall or something.
Oh, yeah, that was nasty, yeah. But he is back playing down in Australia. I can't remember who he's playing for, but I know he's back there playing.
Is it Brisbane?
Maybe, yeah.
Let's see. I think it is. Brisbane Bullets.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Another ex-Celtic. All right. Well, I guess that's all I got, Lee. If the people want to follow your escapades, so your next escapade is to Brazil, is that right? You're going to play in Rio?
I'll be in Sao Paulo and Rio, in about a month. That's going to be unreal for number 20. So very excited about that. Talking with the guys, we're sort of finalizing the details of exactly what's happening. I'll have more information probably not for another week or so here still, but very excited for the potential of what's going to happen down there. I've been to Brazil once before, and you know it, like it's an amazing place, and there'll be some pretty interesting food to be eaten down there. And really excited. Where's your wife from?
She's from the northeast, so it's
Fortaleza or somewhere like that.
Right, I think below it. She's from called Maceió, which has a lot of beach area. A lot of people from other parts of Brazil like to go there to spend time at the beach.
Yeah.
So whenever we go to Brazil, there's a lot of sunburns, but a lot of good food too. Really good food.
Caipirinhas as well on the beach.
Sometimes, I actually kind of like the vodka alternative, which is called a caipirosca, and they do it with you can do it with different fruit. So you can do it with like passion fruit. So a passion fruit one, or there's good stuff. You can do pretty well there with the drinking and eating.
What's that, churrascaria? How do you say that?
Churrascaria.
Churrascaria. Oh, God, I mean, yeah, going back to where we started here, like I don't know if I can go into one of those anymore with all the meat.
I know. I don't know what you're going to be eating. You're gonna be eating
I
like
know.
the pineapples. I don't know what you're
know.
going to eat.
Well, last time I was there, I was 23, so I was eating just meat non-stop. But like I say, now I just don't think the digestion can handle such a binge of beef and meat.
Yeah, you don't want the bubble guts while you're trying to play
Oh,
basketball.
no.
All right. Well, so the people can find you. I know they just look for your name, Leigh Ellis, on Twitter, on Instagram.
Yep.
Where are you most active? Would you say
Yeah,
on
probably
Instagram?
Instagram and TikTok these days.
Okay.
I think I'm Leigh Ellis 76 on TikTok. I think same on YouTube. But yeah, definitely Leigh Ellis, just LEIGHELLIS on Instagram and Twitter. Although Twitter's whatever these days. It's more Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube because I'm putting up videos as well.
Right. Well, Elon Musk says that you should put videos out on Twitter too. So, and I know there was one other comment of Badewine was asking, are you going to go play in Amsterdam or in Holland?
Well, yes. I mean that. Yes, I definitely want to be there in the summer. I was talking to someone a while ago that hasn't sort of picked up because of my focus has been on Brazil here, but definitely Amsterdam. Is super high on the list. I mean, everywhere is like I want to go to, but Amsterdam and Barcelona are probably my two favorite cities in the whole world. So, but who knows? Yeah, I'll be there at some point anyway. Even if it's not this year, I'll be back. Hopefully, if I get a streaming deal, I'll be able to go everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah, well, we hope so too. Badewine is waiting for the call. But anyway, Leigh, thank you so much for making the time. I really do appreciate it. I enjoyed our chat. I feel like I'm going to be able to clip some parts of the earlier part of this conversation, give it to my 6-year-old boy when he gets a little older and he has to learn about trying and trying again. So
that's all it is. All it is.
Yeah, very good. All right, well, thank you, Leigh. Go enjoy the rest of your day, and I wish you the best, and I look forward to seeing what you do in Brazil.
Obrigado.
Okay. All right, guys. Until the next one. Ciao.
Static Selector.